Alright, welcome to LEGO Build Challenge number 1. To start things off, I figured we'd go with something fairly easy, but towards the end, I'll give you all an option to make it a little bit harder if you want some more challenge out of this. Now the first thing that I want to say is that I've got a bunch of Technic pieces spread out in front of me here, but you absolutely do not have to do this with Technic. You could do it with regular Lego, stick it together, build it however you want. You could of course also build it with cardboard or popsicle sticks. I just happen to have Lego Technic on the table here, so that's what I'm going to use right now. So the first thing I want to talk about is the basic teeter-totter. And we've all been on the teeter-totter at the playground. And we all know that when two kids of equal weight sit on either end of a teeter-totter, it's pretty fun, and you go up and down together and nobody gets launched. But as soon as two kids sit on one side, the kid at the other end has absolutely no chance of ever getting back down to the ground, right? They need a second kid to come along in order to balance things out. But there's another way to balance things out. So a teeter-totter is basically just a mechanism or a simple machine called a lever. And levers are used in all kinds of machines all the time. They're probably the most basic machine, and they might be the first machine that any human ever built. So anytime that we have a lever, we have a middle, a point at which the lever articulates or bends or connects, and then we have something that we're trying to lift and some kind of force that we're using to lift it with. And if we're trying to lift this brown brick over here, then we're applying force over here. And we can either apply an equal amount of force at an equal distance from the middle in order to lift the brown brick, or we can apply a greater amount of force at a lesser distance to get the same result, the same balance, the same lift. Now, if that doesn't make sense, maybe we'll link a video to Simple Machines and you can go and have a look at that before coming back to this one. But the basic idea is that the distance along the rod, in this case my Technic beam, increases the mechanical advantage that this weight has in order to lift or balance another weight that is lighter but has a greater mechanical advantage on the end of a longer rod. So how are we going to apply this into a Lego build challenge? Well, we're going to build a mobile. One of those things that usually hangs from the ceiling and spins around and has some kind of like little characters attached to it. Now, because Lego Castle is my favorite theme, we're going to build the mobile in Lego Castle theme. So I'm going to start with a couple of Lego characters of equal weight. I have a couple of dwarves here, and I'm going to turn them into one of the sort of sides of my mobile by building a couple of little stands here that my dwarves can stand on. And then I'm going to place my dwarves in here, and then I'm going to connect them together with a Technic beam. Now, I'm sure you've all looked at a mobile at some point, and you've seen that there's usually a few different arms, various connection points, and things are hanging. Now my two dwarves are close to the same weight, so they're hanging almost evenly. If I put them in the middle and I give them a little wiggle, well, it seems like this dwarf is a little bit heavier than the other dwarf. So the easiest thing that I can do here is to just add a little bit of weight to the lighter dwarf. I'll just shove a plate underneath there. Let's see if that does the trick. Well, this guy might still be a tiny bit heavier, but I'm going to say, well, maybe it's not quite good enough for now. Let's give him a little bit more weight. We'll give him a couple more little plates hiding in the bottom here. And then we'll give this another try. So I started out with 2 objects or 2 characters for my mobile that I think are roughly even weight, and by adding a few plates, there we go, we've hit a perfect balance. So there's the first side of my mobile. I'll slide these guys out of the way, and I'm going to do another side to my mobile. So because it's my castle themed mobile, I'm going to go with 2 knights. And here my connection is going to be a little bit more unusual. I'm going to use the top of the lance as my connection point. So if I was to lift my knight by the top of his lance, you see how he kind of droops over sideways, right? He's going to end up hanging directly underneath the point at which he's hanging from, as opposed to hanging nice and straight. So if this is the case, I might want to give him a little bit of an armature so that the point at which he's hanging is above the knight's center of gravity, right over the middle of his head. So now he's going to hang nice and straight. And depending on what you want to use to build your mobile, you might do something similar if your characters don't line up perfectly with the point from which they are hanging. So I'm going to do the same thing here for Princess Storm. And then I'm going to grab another Technic beam, and I'm going to put the pin in, and I'm going to try and lift these characters and see how this works out. So, well, it appears that Princess Storm might be slightly heavier. Let's try it again. Just give it a little bit of a shake, and Princess Storm is maybe just a hair heavier. And that might be because her shield is bigger, or it might be because her helmet is bigger. But if I give this other knight's horse some horns, maybe that'll balance things out a little bit. There we go. So that tiny little addition of weight has got us pretty close to balance. So let's leave that at that, and let's go on to another one. Okay, so now I've built a couple more characters here, and this time I have 2 characters of distinctly different weight. I have one of Robin Hood's men on horseback, and I have Robin Hood walking along with his bow. So instead of putting my pin in the middle, I'm going to experiment this time with putting my pin way out to the side, so that the fellow with the horse has much less mechanical advantage and greater weight, and the fellow who's just got a bow has much less weight but much more mechanical advantage. And you'll see that I've missed the spot here. It should be one more over, but that's getting pretty close. So now I'll get another beam and I'll try hanging them. And by offsetting my pin, I've gotten this pretty close. But you can see the horse is a little bit too light now. So maybe I'll try moving over one. That's even worse. Try going in the other direction, and that's even worse. So now I come back to the hole that works the best, and the horse is a little bit too light. So maybe we'll just grab some small pieces and we'll add a little bit of weight to the side of the mobile here that's got the horse, and we'll see how that works out. Oh, and now the horse is heavier, so adding 2 is too many. Just pop one off, give it another try, and there we go. We've got a balance. All right, let's do the 4th side. I'll just roll it in here, already built. So this time I've got my orcs, and because I have a huge weight difference, again, between the small orc and the big troll, I'm going to have to try and find an off-center point of balance. So you can see here, that's not going to cut it. It's not going to lift that troll. I can move over one more, give that a lift. Still not going to lift that big heavy troll. And go over one more. And now the troll is much lighter. So here it really seems like I need to be in the middle. And that's totally possible. We can just stick a few more pieces together and center it up. I think between this hole and this hole, we'll just pick them up from the midpoint and we'll see how that works out. Bingo! Lifting these guys between the two holes, I've got another nice balance. Okay, so let's build the rest of the mobile that's going to hold these guys up. I'm going to start with a plate and add some pieces. Alright, so now I've got a big spinning contraption to add my characters onto, and they've all got lower arms already, so I probably won't need that. So let's start by adding some characters. Here I've got my dwarves, and I'm thinking that they're fairly light characters, so if I put them right out on the end of an arm, and then I try and balance them out with characters who look a little bit heavier, I probably have to come in a little bit from the end, because these heavier characters are going to need less mechanical advantage on the length of my arms here in order to achieve a balance. And then same thing again with my next set of characters. I've got my Robin Hood characters here, and I'm going to guess that they're maybe a little bit heavier than the trolls, so, or the troll and the orc. So I'm going to bring them in 2 holes along the beam, and now I'll get my troll and my orc and add them on as well. So now I've got my mobile and we're in balance. But anything that I do can either improve or break the balance. So by bringing Robin Hood in a few holes, he seems to be lifting up and we're going out of balance. And by coming back out a few holes, we're getting closer to balance. So there's your build challenge. Build a mobile of some sort that can float freely, that stays in balance, and it doesn't matter if you build from the ground up or from the ceiling down. You could have a rope coming down here, and we could have some kind of an attachment here to just tie in a rope, and this whole thing could be floating in the air. It really doesn't make any difference, because as long as the pin from the bottom or the rope from the top are attached to the center, then the length of the arms will have the same effect and the mobile will spin nicely. So I said at some point that I would offer a more challenging version of this, and in a way that's what I've done here by creating different weights. If you want the very easy version of this challenge, make all your mobile characters the same weight, at least something similar. Just go for regular minifigures, don't add horses and trolls, or bears, lions, tigers, whatever it is that you want to add to it. If you want it a little bit more challenging, try doing different weights for different characters out on the lengths of your mobile. And if you want to make it really challenging for yourself, what you're going to do is add another level. So on one of these legs, instead of having just 2 characters, add a 3rd character. Try branching out so that you can have 1, 2, 3 characters out on a leg, or branching out so that you separate into 4 characters. So we could branch out once and then branch out again in order to have 4 characters at the end of a leg. And keep the whole thing in balance. Whether you've got 2 that are all the same size, big and a small, 3 or 4, keep it all in balance and make it turn nicely.